Southern California is home to some of the largest oil refining complexes in the United States, and the small city of Carson, California sits at the heart of this industrial corridor. Carson contains two massive oil refineries, the Marathon Los Angeles Refinery, which is the biggest in the state, and the Phillips 66 Refinery, both of which sit right next to each other. These refineries release a steady stream of pollutants into the air, contributing to chronic health issues for the people living closest to them. To grasp why communities like Carson bear the weight of this pollution, we have to consider the broader forces that dictate which neighborhoods are exposed to environmental harm. Environmental justice scholar David Pello reminds us in his writing, What is Critical Environmental Justice?, that environmental inequality is embedded into the broader systems of racism, capitalism, and political exclusion. Pollution isn't just due to random chance. It follows the path of least resistance and settles in communities with the least political and financial power. Carson is a racially diverse, working-class city, and it's actually the city that I grew up in. Over 75% of residents are people of color, including large Filipino, Latino, and Black communities. Many are immigrants or families who have lived here for generations, yet their homes and schools sit right up against industrial zones, sometimes directly facing refinery towers or oil wells. For decades, the Carson refineries have emitted many different harmful pollutants: benzene, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. Each of these chemicals is tied to asthma, cancer, headaches, and chronic respiratory problems. Residents often describe waking up to chemical odors from the incessant smog, experiencing headaches, or watching bright orange flares erupt pollution into the night sky. This is more than just a pollution issue. It's a systemic inequality issue. It reflects what Pello calls differential vulnerability, the idea that marginalized communities experience deeper exposure to environmental harm due to historic patterns of injustice. To understand why, scholar Laura Polito offers a critical insight into this systemic issue. Environmental racism often results from years of zoning decisions, redlining, and discriminatory housing policies. For decades until it became a city in 1968, Carson remained an unincorporated area for industrial use, such as for landfills or auto dumping yards. This is due to the fact that nearby cities with more political power resisted such uses and forced them into places like Carson. Meanwhile, these oil refineries not only threaten air quality, but also daily life. In reports made to the South Coast Air Quality Management District, residents have reported chronic health issues such as asthma and lung disease, malodors from constant refinery flares, and a layer of smog that constantly clouds over the city. This aligns with Polito's theory of spatialized racism and the idea that toxic industries are woven directly into the landscapes where marginalized communities live. In the end, their bodies and neighborhoods absorb the costs of corporate profit. We also know that these harms are not distributed equally amongst the population. Children, elderly, immigrants, and low-income workers face the highest risks due to their weakened immune systems or based off their exposure to high-risk jobs and neighborhoods. Schools near the refinery corridor report elevated asthma rates, and heavy truck traffic from nearby highways adds to diesel pollution that disproportionately affects working-class families. But Carson is not silent. Community organizations like East Air Communities for Environmental Justice have been on the front lines, educating residents, pushing for air monitoring, and demanding accountability from AQMD and refinery operators. During the 2020 Dominguez Channel odor crisis, residents mobilized quickly and demonstrated that environmental justice is not simply about documenting harm, but about fighting for collective survival, dignity, and a safe future. Pello's writing highlights that environmental justice movements are not just reactions to pollution, but transformative struggles that challenge structural inequality and imagine new, just possibilities. Environmental injustice in Carson wasn't created by individual choices, and it cannot be solved by individual choices. Critical environmental justice teaches us that real change requires systemic action. So, you're probably wondering, how can we support environmental justice movements in Southern California? 1. Push for stricter refinery regulations through the South Coast Air Quality Management District. 2. Support community groups like East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice. 3. Advocate for refinery phase-out policies and clean energy transitions that don't harm workers. 4. Demand zoning reform so no neighborhood becomes a sacrifice zone. 5. Hold corporations accountable for the full health impacts of their operations. Environmental justice requires shifting power and giving communities control over the decisions that shape their environment and their lives. The city of Carson shows that pollution isn't accidental, but the result of corporate greed and systems that have placed marginalized communities closer to harm. But those systems can be changed. When communities organize and demand accountability, neighborhoods historically treated as sacrifice zones can become places where people are protected and safe from air pollution and its long-term health impacts.